People have been asking me to cover the Sprunki analog horror videos that have been popping up on YouTube, and while I was going to skip them at first, after watching some of them, they're actually pretty dang good. And I'm going to start this series off with talking about the videos made by the creator named Analog Foxy. Now, the first tape in this series starts out in a very typical analog horror fashion with the VHS style, and the first thing that we see is the word Sprunki's tape redacted. And redacted basically means that like the part of the name has either been changed or edited in some way. And while we don't know what it is, I'm assuming it has something to do with like horror or maybe like infection or something like that. And after that, we actually get some information about what is happening in the Sprunki universe from who I assume to be Gray speaking. He tells us that their world has been infected, which is canon to the lore from the Horror Sprunki mod, but it could also be similar to like the infection AU that we see in My Little Pony, or even like the fundamental paper education animations. Especially since Gray describes it as being more of an illness and not just people simply dying or killing each other. The video also shows us the progression of the illness, and it is kind of scary because a person only has 3 days before they are completely turned, which isn't a lot of time when you consider that once they are completely turned, they will start to attack their friends. And we actually get to see that Brud is the first victim in the video. This part of the video was actually kind of sad for me because Simon basically hunted Brud down and devoured him alive, which sucks because Brud is like that lovable kind of dumb character. But I suppose there isn't a whole lot to do about it because it is canon that Simon did bite Brud's head, so it kind of makes sense. Now, the second part of this tape begins the same as the first, but now we learn that the infection is spreading and that it has taken a hold of Wenda. And if you played the original horror mod, you know that Wenda actually caught a few bodies. And in this video, it seems that she was able to take out Orin, Tuner, and Geralt, which is slightly different than the original lore because while I'm definitely sure that Wenda killed Tuner and she also ripped off Pinky's face, I know that she wasn't responsible for the deaths of Garno or Orin. So it's kind of cool to see that this series is actually moving away from the original lore a little bit. In this video, we also learned what happened to Lime and Ratty. It seems like Lime is the one who actually took out Ratty, which I don't really feel that bad about because Ratty hit Lime in the head with a hammer back in the day, so this is kind of just sweet revenge. But this is also where we learn what happened to Lime's face. Now, I assume that Wenda or Simon had peeled it off, but it seems like Lime did it to himself, which is super dark. In the third tape, we learn what happened to Pinky out in the woods with Wenda. And this scene is actually pretty canon because Wenda was the person that was responsible for Pinky's face being destroyed in the original lore, but it is kind of brutal to see it actually happen. And I still believe that this is Gray speaking to us in the video, and the person chasing him through the woods when he goes to look for Pinky, I believe that first was going to be Wenda, but when you actually zoom in on this frame, this is definitely Durple. And I don't blame Gray for running away from Durple because he's definitely a creepy looking character. Now, after Gray gets away from Durple, we also learn that Lime was torturing Gray, which explains the rope. And then after that, he tried to take himself out, but it seems like he wasn't able to finish the job and instead just left himself mangled and disfigured. Now, in the final video, we see Gray laying on the ground, confirming that he is definitely the person that has been speaking to us, but if we look at him now, he's definitely having a really bad time. Now, what I find interesting about this first part of the video is that it's very similar to the fan theory of Gray having schizophrenia, and all this is just in his mind. And I'm actually going to put the clip where I explained this theory in a previous video. This theory was found on Reddit by a user named Psycho Dolphin, and then there was another user that had a very similar take named Boring Cucumber 8445. Now, the developers have confirmed that Gray is the main character in the horror mod, and the reason that he is one of the few people who survive unharmed is because he hid away when the killing started. But the theory that I was reading actually took a slightly different take. Many people believe that Gray actually either has schizophrenia or some type of other delusional disorder. And for those of you that may not be familiar with those words, these disorders basically make a person see or hear things that may not actually be there, amongst other symptoms like having blended affect and social withdrawal. The blended affect is just being insensitive to people's emotion, and social withdrawal is when people just like avoid their friends and family. Now, people believe that the real reason that Gray is unharmed isn't because he managed to hide, but because none of this is real, but simply his mind playing tricks on him because he's having an episode right now. And the fact that he sees most of the other Sprunkies either dead or mutilated in some way may actually be due to his damaged mental state. And personally, I think that Mr. Funbot may be like the rational part of his mind trying to warn him when it says this. I feel like Mr. Funbot is actually trying to make Gray aware that he's having an episode and needs to come back to reality. And I think this vision here of Gray's head like ripping apart and Mr. Funbot trying to get him to wake up are supposed to connect to that fan theory and kind of allow us to understand that this is really just all in Gray's mind. Now, this video ends by showing us all the victims and Wenda telling Gray that this is all his fault. And we see Gray. And we see Gray holding his head, obviously traumatized by the whole event. And as I said earlier, I think it's because he cannot tell if all this is even real or if he's just having a manic episode in the form of a very bad dream. But all in all, this series was actually very well done and I was pleasantly surprised by it. Put down in the comments if there's any other like analog horror videos I should go over or any animations in general. Check out this video on the screen here. Subscribe today to become a member of the Orseofkorse, and we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace, peace.